remember when Superman fought the Incredible Hulk? Or when Batman teamed up with Daredevil and Spider-Man to take down crime? Well, DC and Marvel just announced they are reprinting their classic crossover collections into two oversized hardcovers. Now, the DC vs. Marvel Omnibus and DC vs. Marvel The Amalgam Age are both available for pre-order right now at Organic Price Books. So if you want to learn about Dark Claw or the original Spider-Boy, go ahead and place your pre-order. You'll get over 30% off and you'll save $2 every time with code BJKicks at checkout. Just visit comicsaredope.com/crossover. That's comicsaredope.com/crossover. Welcome back to Comics Are Dope, the podcast. I'm your host, BJ Kicks, and today it's a little bit bittersweet. We've reached the end of my conversation with Christopher Priest, so I get to present to you the third hour. Now, if you have not heard parts 1 or 2 of this interview, I'd encourage you to go back to listen to episodes 12 and 13 of the podcast. We talked about Priest's early years, his influences as both an editor and a writer, his time that he spent under Denny O'Neil and Larry Hama, even some of the foundational years of what became Milestone Comics. We talked about a lot in those 2 parts of the conversation, so definitely go back and listen. But Priest was here to talk to us about Vampirella issue 666, which is out in comic shops everywhere right now, so you can go get that. And in hour 3, we talked about, mostly Vampirella, why he decided to write it, what he's adding to the mythos that had not been there before, and what he hopes that you'll gain from reading it, as long as, of course, you look past the cover. So we talked about that. We also got to get through some fan-submitted questions, including whether or not Priest would ever consider a return to Black Panther. But we started off with a conversation about a little-known creator-owned work that Priest did called Zero. Let's listen in. You mentioned Zero, right? And
yeah,
ironically, Milestone alum Joe Illidge is sort of heading up that production company, helping to bring Zero to the big screen.
Luminous.
You talked about your experience on Zero and bringing that series to life, and how it wasn't a very pleasant time.
No.
How? What is your hope for the film? What do you want? What do you want the sort of final word to be said on Zero?
Well, I think, as a creator, you only have but so much control over your creation, because once you accept money for something, it belongs to somebody else.
Yeah.
What I liked about dealing with 50 Cent was that we talked to a bunch of people. It's not etiquette for me to say who they are. And it sounds like a bunch of nonsense, but I will tell you, we talked to like really important people, and like a couple of dozen of them that were really interested in this property. And like, I took a bunch of Zoom meetings and stuff, and I'm sitting across from like, holy cow, I can't believe I'm talking to so-and-so,
right.
And that they actually know who I am, which is really scary, so it was, but of the people we talked to, a lot of what we got back was like, we like the idea, but can we round the corners off of it to make it a little easier? Because now we're all so touchy-feely with politically correctness, and everybody's scared of the Twitters with the thumbs, and there's a lot of that going on. So we had a lot of interest from like major players in Hollywood, and I was like, yeah, really, why? But all right, okay, fine. But G Unit was the only company that said, nah, let's do it. And I'm like, well, aren't you scared? Everybody else is scared. Aren't you scared? And 50 ain't scared. He just looked back and he had that $100 smile. And he just looked back and he just laughed. And he's like, 50 Cent ain't scared of nothing. He ain't scared of nobody, and he ain't scared of nothing.
Right.
And I was so impressed that, the distinguishing characteristic of the G Unit offer was that they were not the least bit nervous. The general premise of Zero is that there is a black man who weaponizes race in a way in order for him. He's an assassin who weaponizes race in order for him to do his job. So, he's a black man who his way of melting into, of being invisible, of getting in, executing his mission and getting out. His way of blending in and vanishing is that he disguises himself as a white man, which is terrifying. Was terrifying to a lot of production companies, a lot of major players that were interested in the property, and they kept trying to round the corners off of that. And G Unit was probably the only, or at least the first, I should say, to step in and go, no, we're going to make the offer, and and we're not asking you to change a word of it. So I was like, ooh, okay. But it's a whole play about identity, gender, race. It's this sort of collision of social values that happens with this thing. And the only hope I have is that it doesn't just get killed, because the problem with particularly when you're talking about a motion picture or even nowadays a streaming show, now you got millions and millions of dollars on the line. And the more money you have on the line, the more people in neckties are looking at this stuff. Now G Unit has the clout and has the power to walk stuff through the door and to get things greenlit, because of their track record and because of their success rate and things like that. But even still, we have to, find a suitor. We have to find a studio that wants to do it, or we have to find a distributor, or whatever the story is, and people are going to be scared of this thing because they're afraid of the thumbs. The thumbs are terrifying.
For sure.
How dare you? But the whole point of the series, if you read, go back and read the comics, and we are working a deal with Image to bring the collection out hopefully this year.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so we're in the process of getting that done, and I'm just dragging my feet about it, getting it done. At any rate, but the whole premise is how this black man's identity has been erased, and over the course of the story, it's about a black man discovering his own blackness. So he's like, he has to kill this guy. He's got this mission to execute this guy who's on this on board this transcontinental flight, and the guy's in first class, but the guy's an African and he's in first class on this plane. So when Zero gets on the plane, he's got like the white mask on, and he's he's got this costume and the whole thing, and he gets on the plane, he sneaks on the plane to kill the guy, and he realizes he doesn't have to guess who his target is, because there's only one black guy in first class,
right?
So he kills the guy, he gets off the plane, he gets back in his little transport, and he's thinking to himself, there was only one black man on that in first class, and I killed him, and then he looks at his white face,
right?
And he's just loathing. He's got the self-loathing there, so there's a lot of that identity politics and stuff like that. So it's not just like, that Saturday Night Live skit where Eddie Murphy goes undercover as a white guy, it's not that. But people, they hear the general premise and they go marching off with their presumptions about what this would be. We would never do that type of movie. This is a very intense, this is like the Invisible Man in reverse. It could be a very powerful movie if it's done right, or they could really screw it up if they just try to make it the Green Hornet or something, and some of that, a lot of that may be out of my control. At some point, it just gets out of my hands, and there's not much I can do about it. But let's just I'm hopeful that the people involved, Erica Alexander, the wonderful actress who's starring now in oh wow, what's the name of the movie? American. Oh wow, I'm terrible.
Is it Regina King?
No. This is Erica Alexander. She's
yes, from The Cosby Show and Living Single,
and in this film now that I can't remember the name of, because I'm trying to think of the name of it. So we're gonna edit this.
American Fiction.
There you go. She's starring in American Fiction. I'm so sorry, Erica, that I forgot the name of your film. She's going to kill me. So Eric Alexander and her partner in her production company, Ben Aaron, and of course the wonderful Joseph Illidge, who is my you know just my guru in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Joseph also is the guy who produced the Entropy book, which is the heavy metal comic, which is stuck in limbo because heavy metal ceased publication. But hopefully we can rescue that somehow and either get heavy metal up and running again or get that book out through another publisher, because that's written, drawn. It's beautiful artwork by this new artist Montos, who's drawing Green Lantern now. But
Yes.
this Entropy book is unbelievably gorgeous art, and it's a really twisty story, and it's kind of like Green Lantern if DC had the guts to actually take this all the way. What would it be like if we really, took a really hard look at Green Lantern,
right.
And it's just a wonderful book that's just sitting out there somewhere, so Joseph and I have worked on a number of different projects together, and he was the mastermind who kind of got the Zero movie thing up and running with Color Farm. That's Erica and Ben's production company, and with Illuminous, which is Joseph's company. And I don't have a company. I'm just me. So we'll see what happens here. But yeah, it's just cool. I'm on the Zoom meeting, so here's 50 and here's all of 50's folks. So there's a bunch of folk in the foreground, and they're yakking, and they're producers and writers or whoever they are. They do something there, but they're in like the middle of the mid ground, whatever. There's 50. He's just chilling, and he's got the smile. He's chilling,
Right.
Don't know what you heard about me, but you never get no money out of me,
right.
And it's just, the vibe is just like, we're not worried about those kind of considerations. If we produce this thing, we're going to produce it right. And we're going to release it the right way. And, so that gives me a lot of hope, and we'll see what happens.
Nice. Well, I mean, 50 is one of the most powerful men in Hollywood right now. So,
yeah,
or in New York, wherever he's at.
And it just kind of freaks you out to hear like your name coming out of that guy's mouth,
Right. Yeah.
Like I was at a convention and LeVar Burton, like, he brought his lunch with him. He had this like soul food in Tupperware. And he goes, "Hey, Priest, what you doing?" I'm like, just to hear LeVar Burton go, "Hey, Priest, what you doing?" And I wasn't even hungry, but I'm like, LeVar Burton wants to have lunch with me. Okay. What a nice guy. Oh my God, what a great guy. I was trying not, you try not to be the fanboy, but it's impossible. Right. It's just, it's LeVar Burton. It's impossible.
Right.
You're going to be the fanboy.
Yeah, listen, man. I host a podcast. I know all about being a fanboy. So, Vampirella issue 666 is coming out. You're sort of relaunching the series. It's funny. So, this had to have been Dynamite, and I have had this sort of song and dance since I was at like 5,000 subscribers, and they'll bring something like, "Hey, think you could promote this?" And I'm like, nah, probably not. Right. And so it's funny though, they sent a prize pack, and I ended up giving it to one of my friends who's no longer with us, but it was volume 1 and volume 2 of the trades of your Vampirella run, Seduction of the Innocent. And I was like, yeah, this isn't for me, but I know somebody who will love this, gave it to him. And then, conversation never really came around, but I was talking to Vincent at Dynamite. He's like, "Hey, I know, just try to get past the covers and so on." And I was like, not for me, right? When I first got into comics, I was buying comics at like the stereotypical comic shop with like the clerk that doesn't want to talk to you, store is poorly lit and all that, right? And Vampirella is literally like in a little back wall, like tucked back. Like it's not just a back wall, it's like a back wall and around the corner. And it's like, okay, well, that's clearly the adult section. I'm gonna go over here and grab Batman.
Right, right.
And
They
so,
segregate us. Yes, yeah.
right.
It's awful.
So when we're having this conversation, Nick and I about, interviewing you, I'm like, look, I'm a huge fan of Priest. I'm a youth pastor. I've never read Vampirella, and it's going to be even hard to like put her on the thumbnail of a show based on just my audience, right? But I'm down to have a conversation. And I'm watching you talk to my friend Omar, and you
Oh
were
yeah.
giving this impassioned plea, like, please, we're just trying to get people past the cover. And I'm like, all right, I can't talk to this guy and at least not try the book out. All right. So I go back and grab volume 1 digitally. And lo and behold, right, your reservations to writing the series are the same as my reservations to reading it, right? The costume, the occult, just all the things that sort of come front and center with Vampirella. What ultimately makes you decide, you know what, I'm going to go for it?
It was a tough decision, man.
Mm,
And Nick Barucci, bless his heart, he was like pursuing me forever to do
mm,
it. Um, to be honest with you, I think what pulled the trigger for me, uh, Nick, he drove like, 4 hours or 3 hours or however long it took him to get to Mohegan Sun, which is
mm,
a Native American reservation, a casino up in Connecticut,
mm,
where I was at a show. And he kind of ambushed me there. And he'd been talking to me, trying to get me to do this for the longest time. And
mm,
I was like, Vampirella. But much like with Deathstroke, there's two things. One was like, will I have an opportunity to make this character a fully realized character? Can I take her seriously? Can
mm,
I do my Daredevil, my Netflix Daredevil,
mm,
with Vampirella? And because Vampirella, everything I've read about Vampirella has been kind of frivolous, and it's kind of been like people work in the suit, they work in the costume,
mm,
and then worse, you'll have someone who will come along and go, well, I object to the sexism of the costume, so I'm going to put her in this outfit, this other outfit. And
mm,
once you put her in another outfit, she's no longer Vampirella. The costume
mm,
kind of defines her.
mm,
And then I thought, well, I'm seeing more revealing stuff on women on YouTube, you
mm,
know. So all of a sudden, I don't think the costume is nearly as like sensational or as disturbing,
mm,
as it once was. But for me, the real trigger pull
mm,
was, I said, to Nick that I'm really not comfortable about writing about the devil. I don't really like Marvel making like the son of Satan a comic book character,
mm,
or having the devil show up in characters. And because traditionally, I could write the devil all day long, and
mm,
the comic book people, the publishers, don't really have a problem with the devil. Everybody likes the devil.
mm.
As soon as you start talking about God, it makes people nervous.
Right.
So I said something to Nick along the lines of, well, the only way I could write about the devil is if I could feel free to write about God.
Mm,
And Nick didn't even blink. He went, yeah, okay. And I was like, I'm warning you. And he's like, Jay Leno, okay. So I'm pretty sure that was kind of the trigger pull. That and the idea crept into my head. It's like, well, what if you took the creative direction, of Lena Dunham's Girls,
mm,
and kind of wrote it in that tone, and what that life would be like.
mm,
So that was kind of the trigger pull there. Um, I don't deal that much with the occult. She's a science fiction character. I
mm,
think over the years, writers have strayed away from that and
mm,
tried to recast her mother Lilith as like Adam's first wife, and and
mm,
grounded in all this Bible stuff. And I'm like, well, no. If her mother is Adam's first wife was human. Adam was human. She's a human. Game over.
mm. Right.
Right? That makes no sense to me. No offense to the other writers who are still writing her that way, still writing the series that way. God bless you. Go. Go. You do you.
Right.
Okay. With Nick and with Dynamite, I've been given sort of carte blanche to create my own little corner of universe. So my continuity is unique to the Priest version of Vampirella, and there's
Gotcha.
many other versions, and they can do whatever they want, and I do what I want. So,
Mm,
so I usually go, well, is she casting, is her mother, who's like this sorceress, is she casting a spell, or is this super science we don't understand? And I kind of open the door for both things, but I don't get involved with Satanism. One, for personal reasons, but also because if I ground it in any of this, if I tie any of this stuff to Satanism, then now the problem I have with comics is that when they deal with the devil, they kind of have this sort of weird. They don't understand theology where they go, well, the devil is like the diametric equal of God. So you got God on this side and you got devil on that side, which is absolutely ridiculous.
Right.
Okay. The devil is a created being. He was created by God. Okay. The creation will never be greater than the creator.
Right.
And this nonsense that we grow up with, I have this, I had, past tense, this online Christian website called praisenet.org. It's still up there, but it's kind of like my own website. It's kind of been abandoned because I just don't have time to work on it. But the whole mission of the PraiseNet thing was to kind of like explode a lot of these dumb ideas and to move us away from Christian mythology and back to Christian theology.
Right.
Because Christian theology is rational inquiry into spiritual matters, right? Christian mythology is stuff you done heard someplace. Okay.
Yeah.
So an example of that is like, good people go to heaven, bad people go to hell. And we're taught that as children. Good people go to heaven, bad people go to hell. That's not true. Okay. The Bible says that heaven is a place prepared for sinners saved by grace. It has nothing to do with you being good. You can be as good as you want to be.
Right.
Yeah, that's nothing to do with it. Okay. There's going to be a lot of nice people, with the best of intentions that miss the mark. Okay. Yeah. And then, when you're a little kid, your grandma passed away and mom was like, well, grandma's in heaven. Grandma's dead. Grandma, not, you got to stop telling your kids this. Read your Bible. The Bible don't say that. The Bible don't say nothing about, good people and bad people and grandma not in heaven. Okay. The Bible says that, at the shout of the archangel, the dead in Christ shall rise. The story of the Bible is about redemption, resurrection. That's the story. Now, whether you believe it or not, I don't really push my, faith on people, but that's how the story goes. Get the story right. The story is about resurrection. That if grandma, if she, the Bible talks about they who sleep, about those who have died in Christ, that they have the hope of resurrection, but a lot of times we're fed all this stuff. So when you read the comic books, they treat like, the devil is Lex Luthor and God is Superman. And they have this kind of like, inappropriate correlation between the two. And it's just the theology is all wrong. So I'm like, well, if I talk about any of it, I need to apply accurate theology in the same way that I try to make, my Superman books as grounded in reality as possible.
Right.
So it was kind of that thing there. Now, the last hurdle I had to deal with was, and I still kind of deal with it, is art versus, whatever your convictions are, whatever your personal convictions are.
Right.
So you have people who are Christian artists who, like musicians, and they will only play gospel music or they only play Christian music.
Right.
So then Fred Hammond puts out this double album set, Love Something and Something. I forgot the title of it. And it's a great album, and my God, the thumbs are coming for him. He's backslid, he's blah, blah, blah. He hasn't backslid. He hasn't lost his faith. It's like the guy's an artist and he's exploring, and let him explore, what Amy Grant was singing, like, you light up my life. And she, not that Amy Grant lose her faith and so forth.
Right.
So do we put a bra on the Venus de Milo, because that's what our Christian conviction is. And does our Christian conviction mean that we have to be completely divorced from, any kind of commercial pursuits or any kind of artistic pursuits? So it's a kind of a wrestle, and maybe I'm kidding myself, or maybe I'm missing the mark here somewhere. But I'm just going, well, this is my art. This is not necessarily my ministry. I occasionally get to hang out my shingle and have Father Gutierrez show up and give us a lecture about, she says something about live by the sword, die by the sword. And Gutierrez has to correct her about that whole idea that Jesus, that people don't get that scripture wrong, and they think that that scripture is kind of a pacifist scripture, or that it's it's about gun control or whatever. It's like, no, Jesus knew his guy was armed. You can't hide a sword. He knew the guy had the sword.
Right.
Jesus was preaching against a culture of violence. That's what he's talking about. Putting your faith in anything other than God. You're putting your faith now in that gun, in that knife, and whatever you got in your pocket there. When he said turn the other cheek, he wasn't talking about being a pacifist or let yourself get beat up or let yourself be a victim. He's turn the other cheek is about not taking revenge. That's what turn the other cheek is about. It's about, us not lashing out and having this, taking these things, into our own hands and learning how to forgive one another, learning how to, it becomes like this conflict that I've kind of made my peace with, that I just go, you know what? I think there's value to the series. I think that, if I do touch on theological issues, that I am touching on them. The character is a pansexual space vampire. So there is behavior that happens in the Vampirella comic that certainly is not necessarily my lifestyle, or not necessarily something that I endorse, but this isn't me. This is the character. This is what the character does. Now, is that a cop out? Maybe. I don't know. But I think I'm doing good work here. I think it's good art, and I don't feel necessarily convicted about it. I think I have more problems with the covers than I have with what's going on inside the book. But the covers are actually what sells the book, because they're collectors, like baseball cards. They're collector's items. It just makes me kind of wince, and I will, I have many times sort of like gotten on the horn and made noise where I thought, well, I think you went too far here. I think this were, there was like an issue of Sacred Six where they had this team of super bad girls, and this cover had them dressed up like Catholic school girls, and it had this kind of real icky sort of unfortunate, and I went, I think that was a wrong turn. Right. But by and large, I think that the Dynamite does a decent job with it. I just would really like, and I've been campaigning a bunch about, you're doing a bunch of variant covers. Give me one cover that looks more like Paper Girls or Saga or something that would appeal to that crowd, because that's what's inside this book. There's more of the content inside between the covers, would appeal to that segment of the audience. Yeah. But they don't know what's in there because they can't get past the cover, or because the retailer is segregating it and keeping it, back here, or worse, they're keeping it up front, but they're putting I've seen them put a little
the bags over it.
They have a bag over there, a piece of paper over, so you see Vampirella logo and maybe her nose. Right. And then it's just censored. And I'm like, the message that sends is inside this book, it's a porno book, and it's not a porno book. It's certainly an adult book, or certainly a teen plus book. It's definitely not for children. It's got some language. It's got some behavior in it, but I think that I'm being honest to the human condition, to this is how people actually live, as opposed to if I was writing a Christian comic and I scrub all of that behavior out of the Christian comic, just like we have Christian movies and Christian books and all so forth like that. And I think that has problems of its own, because now we're teaching people that to believe in Christ means we have to live in a bubble, and we can't deal with reality as it really is and with human behavior as it really is. So I don't know, it's a tough call, but I'm in it for the duration. I'm having a good time. Dynamite keeps renewing my contract, which surprises the hell out of me. I'm like, okay,
right.
So here we go with and with this 666, we're kind of going back to that simplicity and getting away, because we had sort of, with any series, the longer you go, the more you layer on continuity, and because stuff happens over the course of a year, 2 years, 3 years, 10 years, whatever. So here we're going right back to where we started, to our issue number 1, to our first meeting, Vampirella and her friends. And if you've never read the book before, this is a great place to start. But if you have read the book, you'll find it hilarious, because you'll know immediately you'll start catching all these Easter eggs, and you'll realize immediately something's wrong here. Right. Now, if you're new to the book, you won't realize something's wrong until Vampirella does. And Vampirella will tell you, something's wrong here. But if you've been reading the book, you'll find it hilarious. It's hilarious. If you've read the book before, you'll go, holy crap, this is fun. And I'm having a blast writing it.
Right. Awesome. Nah, like I said, I got through a portion of the first trade, enough to like understand the value of it, right? Like, it's got everything that, you sort of know and love. If you read Priest, like, this is absolutely a Priest book. It's just some of the content is a little bit more adult, right? My personal rule is I try not to read anything that I wouldn't like want my kid looking over my shoulder at, because at any moment, my 13-year-old might be looking over my shoulder, and my 2-year-old, or she'll be 3 next month, she's snatching whatever I'm reading out of my hand. So it's like, all right, let's just let's just keep it simple in that way. But the writing is smart, it's humorous, and like I said, it's got all of the priestisms, if you will. What would you say? I guess you've mentioned it, right? But what's the overall thesis of Vampirella, and I guess maybe what's your sort of elevator pitch for someone looking to get into it?
In order to understand my approach to Vampirella, first we have to talk about Casper the Friendly Ghost. So Casper the Friendly Ghost wants the same things that we want out of life. He wants community, friends, family. He wants to fit in. He wants purpose. He just wants to have fun. The problem is Casper happens to be a dead baby, and dead babies are scary. And and this is like a cartoon from the 60s, so some of you are not gonna have any idea what I'm talking about. But Casper would kind of befriend people in the cartoon. In every episode, he would kind of befriend people, and then at some point they would realize that he's a ghost, and they would go, a ghost, and they'd run away, and he'd be sad because now he lost his friends. Okay, so Vampirella the series is very simple. It's about a young woman trying to make her way in the big city.
Gotcha.
That's it, and she wants friends and family and love and community and purpose. She wants, a decent job, and, she, has money problems, and, it's just, she happens to be a vampire from outer space, and so that kind of complicates, and she has like this mother who is this meddling, sort of mischievous, evil, witch type person, who I borrowed strongly from Agnes Moorehead's performance as Indora on the 60s TV show Bewitched.
Yes.
So she's this kind of meddling person, and then she has an evil twin sister, which is, look, I didn't make this stuff up. This is from Warren, but she has this evil twin sister named Draculina, who is another pain in the butt. If you ever had like, that annoying relative who was always just like, causing problems, and they're borrowing money and they're sleeping on your couch and they're, just that's Draculina. So, uh, it's not terribly complicated. It's not the X-Men or anything. It's very slice of lifey, and she has these friends. One of them is named Victory, and Victory is she starts out as kind of a love interest for Vampirella. It doesn't last long. It doesn't end well. And then she's co-opted by Victory's mother, because Victory's mother, that's what she does for fun, is co-opt people and turns Victory into this kind of imitation vampire. She gives her a demon ring and becomes this imitation vampire. And Mom sends Victory undercover to this Christian university to basically do some nefarious things and so forth. And long story short, while she's at the Christian school spying on them and doing nefarious things, she actually ends up having a real encounter with Jesus Christ. So Victory becomes a born again Christian, but now she's a born again Christian with this cursed ring that she can't get rid of. So that's her inner conflict, So there's a little redemptive value there, and she's still wearing the sort of Vampirella outfit, but once she gets saved, we use that word saved. Once she gets saved, she wears a black bodysuit under it, so she's no longer showing all that skin.
Right.
And then she has this friend Benny the Witch, and Benny the Witch is a fun guy. What I liked about Benny is that we killed Benny off in the first issue. I think we might have killed him off in I want to say pilot, the 0 issue. No, I think it was issue 1. We killed Benny off, and it was a writer's challenge to me. I decided to do this. I said, well, sometimes you want to just challenge yourself. Can I kill this character off in issue 1 and make the audience fall in love with him over the next like half a dozen issues by, because we kill him off in issue 1, and then Vampirella ends up going to see this psychiatrist, and she's telling the psychiatrist the story, and the psychiatrist becomes, how did you describe the character, the keyhole character?
The ride along
character. Yeah. So the psychiatrist is our ride along character. What's interesting about my Vampirella is that this is a universe that does not believe in vampires. Okay, vampires, Frankenstein, all that stuff, forget it. So the psychiatrist, she's the lone survivor of this plane crash. He just thinks she's crazy. So he's trying to help her, and she's telling the psychiatrist this story, how this plane crash came to be and blah, blah, blah. So we get to meet Benny the Witch and Victory and these other characters, so my challenge was like, okay, Benny dies in issue 1. But as we go along, hopefully I'll make him so interesting because she's telling this story and we get to know who Benny is, that by the time we catch up to the present, we catch up to, those events on the plane, the reader's going, in the back of their head, they're starting to realize, oh no, he's dead. He's and I'm starting to like him now. Right. And you kind of wish you could undo it. So the nice thing about Vampirella 666 is we undo it. For reasons I won't go into, because we'll discover it in the story. But spoiler alert, we've gone all the way back, and those characters are back to their original first appearances, and we've wiped away a bunch of the complexity so that people can kind of like step onto this escalator and ride with us for a little bit. Or if you've already read this stuff, you will get the gag, you will get the joke, on a whole different level. It's kind of like when you watch Bugs Bunny with your kids, and the kids get the cartoon on this level, but you're reading those Acme signs and you're getting those little Easter eggs, and you're like, oh, that's really funny, So there you go.
Nice. Well, Vampirella 666 is out, currently slated for February 14th, so Valentine's Day. So you guys can still pre-order that at dynamite.com or at your local comic shop. So as we have clearly entered special 2-part episode land.
Sorry.
No, you're good. It's not you're fine. This has been amazing. This is everything I would have wanted from a Priest interview. I do have a few questions from the audience that we can kind of hit rapid fire.
Yes, sir.
All right. So, first question: how did you develop the banter and relationship between Quantum and Woody?
It's a almost a direct ripoff of my actual relationship with my artist Mark Bright.
Got you. Um, that is great.
The whole
Okay.
relationship is
Mm,
literally that's the vibe of
mm,
two guys who love each other who just get on each other's nerves, and that's being in Doc.
got you. Okay. Um, so you've been in comics for quite some time, right? I can imagine that you just have like a great mental encyclopedia, but how much do you have to research a character like Superman before you start writing?
Oh my gosh, I can't tell you how many people that I talk to, but uh, long story short, anytime I have to write a character, I do a ton of research. I read everything I can read online. I talk to people I know, like if that's I know a lot of the creators themselves.
Mm,
So with Superman, uh, I actually recruited Michael Carlin, who was the editor during Death of Superman and so forth, and
mm,
one of the greatest Superman editors ever. And he
mm,
was kind of like the man behind the curtain for a lot of Superman Lost. And then I also had, Mark Wade was on Speed Dial
mm.
and others. But yeah, you research the hell out of it because usually what I'm trying to do is I'm shopping around to find something that hasn't been done before,
Mm,
and something that will appeal to me somewhere along the way where I could go, this will get me in trouble. Let's do that.
right,
So,
man. Okay. Um, someone wants to know, would you consider, Marvel's doing those flashback series, get the original guy to do a story set during their time. Would you consider a flashback Black Panther series?
I don't know. I think, at some point I blasted Black Panther into outer space.
Hmm.
And I said to myself, okay, it's time to go. You have officially run out of ideas.
Right.
Black Panther in space. Now, all due respect to Ta-Nehisi Coates, who has a real job and is a
Mhm.
much better writer. He's done a whole series of Black Panther in space, so God bless
Right.
him. But I think that Marvel has approached me a couple of times about
Mhm.
doing Black Panther things, and I've kind of, uh, you don't want to go back and compete with yourself,
Yeah.
and then you read like, you know, 2023 Priest Black Panther, and you go,
Mhm.
you're not as good as 1998 Priest Black Panther, so probably not. Let's put it that way.
Got you. Okay. Um, all right. So you started out, you wanted to be a writer and artist. You've been
Yes.
a writer, you've been
Yep.
an editor.
Yep.
What is the ideal balance between those three roles working together on a book?
Well, I really wish I had not stopped drawing.
Mm,
Uh, Joe Rubenstein, the inker and good friend of mine, Joe Rubenstein, he says he was joke. Now he says he was joking, and he feels bad that he said that. But I was 17 years old, and I was in the
mm,
bullpen, and I was drawing. And Joe
mm,
comes in the bullpen. He looks over my shoulder and goes, "What you got there, Jim?"
mm,
Uh, Drawing. He goes, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "Eh, that's not drawing." you know, he goes, I hear you're a writer. You should probably stick to. You're a good writer. You should stick to that.
mm,
And it completely destroyed my confidence, and I stopped drawing. But I got the internship coming through the door with a comic book that I wrote and drew.
mm,
And I really regret that because there's just times when I'm either trying to get a certain thing out of an artist, or for whatever reason I can't get a project off the ground that I want to get off the ground. And I admire the fact that guys like Frank Miller, Dan Jurgens, that these guys they can just freaking draw it themselves. And I went,
mm,
wow, if only I could do that. So what's the perfect balance? I would love to be able to do all three. You
mm,
know,
mm,
as far as editing, I wish they would let me edit my own comics. I think I'm disciplined enough to do that.
mm.
I would work with a story editor who
Okay.
would edit the plot, and that's what you need, is someone to kind of make sure you're not screwing up, another set of eyes.
Right.
But beyond that, then just let me handle the crew. Let me be
Yeah.
like, the showrunner and the writer, and most publishers won't let you do that. The closest I've got to that is my working relationship with Dynamite. I work with a wonderful guy named Matt Matt Idelson,
Mm-hmm.
who ironically is the father of Everett K. Ross, because we created that character back when I was working for him at Marvel, writing Kazar.
Wow.
So Matt, actually comes up with a lot. In fact, the main plot line for its Vampirella 666, that's Matt's idea, and I went, "Oh, that's great." Keep them coming. I'll take credit for whatever you come up with. That would be great.
Wow. Okay. And so, all right. So somebody asked what your dream project is, right? I know that if someone called you with mainline Batman or Iron Man, you'd come running.
You've done your homework. Yeah, yes, you have. Yeah,
So,
and they don't. I say that every time anyone asks. And I know for a fact that Ben Abernathy and Tom Brevoort, they know this, and they're like, nope, we're not calling them. Nope, 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 nope. So I don't know. I don't know what to tell you.
yeah.
But yeah, I like playing with the toys. Now I think I need to start moving into like my own stuff and making. I think 24 is kind of. I'm kind of, finishing up a bunch of things. And before I start a bunch of things, I'm like, well, maybe it's time for me to like do Banana Man or something that I really want to do and find a way to finance it and put it up on its feet on my own. But yeah, it's like that, those are the two, everybody starts in this business. If you're writing or drawing superheroes, you start wanting to play with the toys, and that's the fun of it. But as I said in exhaustive, bending your ear and please cut all that stuff out. I am probably not the guy that a lot of editors want to call for their mainstream projects because I just approach the work in a very quirky signature manner that may or may not work with a lot of mainstream readers.
Got you. Yeah, it's funny. That was a question I had for you was, why not dip into sort of creator own stuff? And I just assumed maybe it's just you just love superheroes that much. Like you just wanted to play with those characters specifically.
Well, and then I can't describe to you how lazy I am. Is that, if I'm in the middle of these other projects and as these projects fall off, other projects kind of present themselves where people go, "Hey, do you want to write Giraffe Guy?" Okay, all right, I'll do Giraffe Guy. But yeah, the way I got away with writing the novels is that I wasn't in comics. Those novels are up there. There's one called 1999, and 1999 is a self-contained superhero universe. It's my Astro City. It's a 4-part. I broke it up into 4 novellas. I would love to bring that to life. I would need a big commitment because I wouldn't want to write 4 chapters of it and then have it canceled. Right. But that's the kind of thing I want to do. And the only way I got that done is that I wasn't writing comics at the time. I was pastoring at the time. And then I started writing a 5th installment of this thing. And I got the call for Deathstroke. And I just ran out of time. Deathstroke was publishing twice a month. I wasn't able to go back. So, oops. Gotcha. But yeah, I would like to do something. And I think probably this is a year when I finally like go, all right, you're running out of time. You need to do something of something original. And because they're not going to let you write Iron Man or Batman. So, oops.
Gotcha. Okay. So a question I had for you. I mean, you've been in comics, 45 years now. I mean, you were in Marvel, in the Marvel office, and Stan was still walking around the Marvel offices.
Yes, sir.
So you've seen a lot of careers. You've helped to launch a lot of careers. Is there a writer, artist, editor? Who is that person, or who are the people that you look back at and you're like, man, I'm proud of what you've become?
Oh, lots of people. Joe Quesada, start there. Mark Silvestri, who, I don't want to say he began his career in my office, but, a lot of his early work was started in my office. Kyle Baker, who's kind of transcended, comics as we know it. Mark Beecham, who's, kind of left mainstream comics and is just doing his own thing. And on and on and on. I mean, Peter David is a wonderful, brilliant writer. He's always been a brilliant writer and a great guy, and I love him a lot. And you know, yeah, you know, I guess I'm proud of all of them, to be honest with you. But I'm really grateful that to Jim Shooter of all people, that that he and Larry and Denny, that these guys sort of gave me the opportunity to open those doors for these other people, and I took a lot of flack for that because you know when Mark started out, he wasn't great, and then Peter was great. He was great right out of the box, but he was working for the sales department, and there was this rivalry between the sales department and the editorial department, and people were mad at me for giving Peter a job because he's the enemy. He works for the sales department. I go, will you people grow up? You want them to sell your comic books? Are you insane?
Right.
That kind of thing. But yeah, I just I'm happy for their success and grateful that if I played any role in it at all, even if it was just for me to irritate them, then I'm really happy to have done that.
Man, this conversation has been amazing. Just thank you for your time, being so gracious with it. This is cool. I kind of set out, right? If I get a Christopher Priest interview, I'm just gonna ask like every question. It was like I wanted to toe the line between like, all right, let's try to play serious journalist and fanboy. So like, I don't want to ask questions everybody else asked. We didn't really touch a whole lot on Black Panther, but this conversation has been so amazing. Thank you so much for your time, man.
Not a problem. I appreciate you having me, and and maybe we could set something up and we'll talk about Black Panther at some point. But yeah, I appreciate you having me here, and next time I hope I have like lighting as nice as yours. Because every time you cut to me, I look like I'm in the DMV, like next.
I got this little thing on Amazon. It's great. It helps the video a lot because I'm in a gray room as well. I would have generic apartment for sure going on.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I'll have to work on it. It's a new day. I have to get used to this video thing. So
right.
There you go.
Well, before we wrap up, I just have to say again, a huge thanks to Nick and Amy over at Dynamite for helping to coordinate this conversation. Vampirella 666 is out February 14th, so you can pre-order that at your LCS or just go to dynamite.com so you can grab one of the 18 million exclusive variant covers that they will have up for grabs. And I'm sure somewhere in there is a blank sketch variant that Priest can read.
There you go. There you go.
So man, yeah, definitely do that. And we're gonna go ahead and sign off. Superman Lost is out in shelves. You can pre-order that hardcover because they're collecting that later this year. What else you got to plug?
Oh my gosh. Well, obviously the Entropy project that's being held hostage. And there's like a major Marvel project that I cannot announce until they do. I believe it'll finally start coming out this year, but I wrote that like 3 years ago. So it's like, wow, we're finally getting around to putting that sucker out. So fingers crossed. We'll see, we'll see how that happens. And I'll just keep you posted about whatever else is being developed.
Awesome, man. Well, that's exciting. Well, look, thank you guys for watching. I don't know how many parts I cut this interview up into, but I appreciate you guys, still sticking around to the end. I don't know what you got going on, but stay safe, stay awesome, and read something dope today.